Welcome. My name is Thomas Allen Moon, and I'm the author of Payback: Why the Top 1% Must Invest in the Rest, and How It Can Renew America. I wrote Payback to deal explicitly with an ongoing trend that politicians of all stripes have refused to admit exists. Over the last 40 years, the gap between what it costs to live the American dream and the market income of ordinary workers has widened from a gully to a canyon. This canyon now threatens the future of the middle class, and if nothing is done, Americans with ordinary skills will fall out of the middle class. Payback proposes a tax policy that will enable capitalism not only to save the middle class, but to grow and make it more prosperous. Since Payback digs deeply into the weeds, I've recorded this Q&A to give readers a quick take on it. To make this Q&A easier for readers to digest, I've divided it into 15 sections. Payback is free to read on a website that I've created for the convenience of readers. It's my hope that Payback will contribute to a national dialogue on tax policy that I believe will take place sometime in the next decade. Now let's get started with the Q&A. Part 4. The top 1% has gotten too fat and the bottom 90% too thin. More progressive taxes can help right-size the slices of the economic pie. First question. How do you know when too much income and wealth have concentrated for too long at the top? Well, you look at the trends of income and wealth concentration over a time span. In 1986, the top 1% accounted for 23% of all wealth, and the bottom 90% accounted for 39%. But in 2014, the top 1% accounted for 37% of all the wealth, an increase of 62%, and the bottom 90% accounted for 28%, a decrease of 29%. In 1986, the top 1% accounted for 12% of all economic income, and the bottom 90% accounted for 64%. But in 2014, the top 1% accounted for 20% of all income, an increase of 82%, and the bottom 90% accounted for 53%, a decrease of 17%. During this same period, the median wage was flat, and the gap between the median wage and the average wage grew. Compared with 1986, income and wealth have both intensely concentrated at the top. So what's the problem if some Americans are much better off than others? Isn't that what happens in a capitalistic society? Well, here's the problem. It's natural and good for some to have more than others based on ability, effort, and luck. But if it gets out of hand, capitalism can tear a society apart. Anytime capitalism results in a growing number of able-bodied full-time workers earning too little income to live a middle-class standard of living, save for their retirement, and pay for their health care and the post-secondary education of their children, that it's not working for everyone. The problem isn't that some have more than others. It's that many don't have enough. Question. For capitalism to work for everyone, what must it do? Well, for capitalism to work for everyone, the private sector must create enough prosperity to meet the needs of workers who contribute to the economy. It must also produce sufficient prosperity to satisfy the needs of the society by raising enough taxes to finance the public sector. These jobs, moreover, should pay at a minimum enough for the worker and/or his family to have a decent standard of living. Beyond jobs, capitalism that works for everyone should assure, regardless of income, both all working Americans a decent retirement and all Americans both adequate health care and access to the post-secondary education they need to realize their full potential. Question. When you say a decent standard of living and decent retirement, what do you mean? I'll be precise and arbitrary. I believe that no adult full-time worker who works at least 2,000 hours a year should earn poverty wages. So I believe that no wages should be less than 125% of poverty, currently about $15 an hour. As to retirement, I believe that Social Security benefits, with some added progressivity, guarantee a decent retirement for all workers. Question. We've covered a lot of ground about what you think it takes for capitalism to work for everyone. Since your book is about tax policy, Explain how it can make capitalism work for everyone. I'm going to state 3 principles that I believe will make tax policy enable capitalism to work for everyone. First, tax policy must redistribute income in ways that promote both economic growth and social equity. Second, tax policy must end the corruption of capitalism. Third, taxation must raise sufficient revenue to maintain America's long-term financial security. Question. Take the first principle and explain what redistribution can do to promote economic growth and social equity. As I've already said, capitalism doesn't always distribute income and wealth in ways that promote maximum growth or social equity. From time to time, forces like globalization and automation intervene to both concentrate too much income and wealth in too few and upset a proper balance between the investment necessary for maximum production and the income necessary for maximum consumption. When that happens, tax policy should redistribute income to correct this imbalance. How do you know when there's an imbalance? A key indicator is the unhealthy accumulation of surplus capital. Define surplus capital. Wealth is income that accumulates over time, and it has 2 components, investment capital and surplus capital. Investment capital is that portion of wealth that is invested in business to earn a return, and surplus capital is that portion of wealth that can't be invested in businesses because there's no demand for the goods and services that it would generate. Now that you've described surplus capital, what's its significance? Investment capital is essential to making the economy work because it's the source of funds for business investment. Surplus capital supports philanthropy and the market for luxury goods and services. Because of the intense concentration of wealth, most surplus capital has concentrated in the top 1%. There's nothing wrong with the top 1% having more philanthropic dollars to spend or more access to luxury goods and services, but it involves a trade-off. Tax cuts for the rich have been a leading cause of the accumulation of surplus capital in the top 1%. In tax policy, there's a choice. Taxes can be cut disproportionately for either the top 1% or the bottom 90%. Since the wealthy are financially able to save their tax cuts, tax savings for the top 1% result in increasing their surplus capital. But since those who aren't wealthy spend most or all of their income on just getting by, tax savings for the bottom 90% result in increasing their consumption. Tax policy then involves a trade-off. Cutting the top 1% grows elite luxury markets and some philanthropy, while cutting the bottom 90%'s taxes grows mass consumer markets. Explain how this trade-off affects people. Growing luxury markets means more income for high-end realtors, private jet and yacht salesmen, and art dealers, while growing mass consumer markets means more jobs for Walmart employees, childcare workers, and fast food workers. I believe there will be more jobs and the economy will grow faster if tax cuts are used to increase the mass consumer market rather than elite luxury goods and services market. Increasing philanthropy enables wealthy donors to favor their pet charities, but at the cost of diverting tax revenue from unmet public needs. Question. You've explained why you think redistribution that favors the bottom 90% promotes economic growth. Do you want to tax away all surplus capital? No. The ability to accumulate surplus capital is an essential element of capitalism and should be encouraged as a just reward for success. My point, however, is that when its further accumulation threatens growth, it's time to rein it in. This concludes Part 4.